Hey guys, Anthony here with Pro Dealer Secrets, and in today's video, we're just going to do a quick HR slash employee information slash tip video. I don't know, but so I had a question about what do you do with an employee that is just not doing what you want them to do, either not doing it well after repeatedly showing them what to do, or they just refuse to do it. Like, for example, refusing to go and take pictures of the vehicles to post them, or they're not doing the sales process you want them to do. They're not using the script, stuff like that. So I would say, first you need to really, and this video is going to have a lot of like little good nuggets in it. But first you want to decide, do you want this person to work for you? That's a very simple first question. If you don't really want them to, then you need to replace them ASAP. You need to find someone, hire them, and teach them how to replace the other person. And usually I don't like to fire someone until I've like hired their replacement, and not necessarily like next to them like they're already trained, but you want to find the best person to replace them and then fire the person you have, unless you're okay with doing the work. Because a lot of times I would fire someone and then I wouldn't have anybody to sell, so I'd be selling for a few weeks until I found someone. And I kind of quickly learned that I'd rather just have someone working for me while I found someone and then fire them when I found the replacement. But that's up to you. But I will tell you this, if you are ever in a position with an employee to where you're not firing them because you're scared to run the business without them, and that's like the only reason you're keeping them, you need to fire them ASAP. Because anytime that you're keeping someone simply because you're scared of not having them around, as far as like, you don't want to do the sales yourself, you don't want to do this yourself, but you're not keeping them because of how well they do their job, you probably need to fire them. And I've found that true to be in almost every single scenario where I was not firing someone because I was justifying keeping them because I figured, well, I don't have anybody else to sell, so I just need them. In that case, you probably aren't going to want to keep them around. Also, a big part of it is your hiring and your training process. If you do the hiring process very well, and if you do the training process correctly, it'll dramatically improve the chances that you have someone that's going to do a great job. Because big companies like Southwest and other companies like that, they purposefully hire for attitude, and then they train the skill. Meaning, they find people with a great attitude, not necessarily skilled in the job they're doing, but they hire them for a great attitude, and then they will train them on how to do the job related skills. Because people with a great attitude will pick up a skill pretty quickly because they want to learn, they want to do a good job. So just that alone makes them a great candidate for a job. And really, 85% of the job pool are not good people. Like, I read a stat that like 70% of employees steal from the workplace, and like it was like 75 or 80% of all resumes have lies on them pretty much. So like there's really no point to reading a resume because most of them have made up BS, or they're fabricated, or they're exaggerated, and they don't really mean anything. Really what you want to do is when you're hiring someone, you want to do a group interview, because you want to interview every single person at one time, because it saves you a ton of time. Imagine that you need to interview 10 people. And if you interview them all individually and it takes 30 minutes to an hour per person, well, you've just spent like 10 hours in a week interviewing. Versus if you take 10 people, put them all in one room, and you do an hour-long interview for all 10 people at one time, you've just saved yourself 9 hours in a single week. So that's a big key. Plus, most people aren't prepared for a group interview, because a lot of people, they're great interviewers because they know exactly what to say, they've been studying, they know exactly how to answer your questions on a one-on-one interview. So then you get them into the job and they suck. Well, in a group interview, the way you ask questions, and if you go below, we're actually going to link in this video, we'll link you to our guide called The Magic of the Group Interview Process. It shows you step by step how to interview, hire, and how to conduct a group interview. It gives you the exact scripts. It gives you all the exact job postings we use. So all that cool stuff. But if you interview people in a group setting, they're more uncomfortable. You get to see them more closely to their true self, because they're going to have they're going to lose kind of like all this scripted stuff they memorize. They're just going to be able to, talk more freely, and you can kind of put them on the spot and really get a feel for how everybody interacts with each other. So that's why I love the group interview, because of that reason. But whenever you have an employee that's already hired and they're not doing what you want them to do, the best way to prevent that happening is when you hire someone, laying out the job expectations very clearly, the tasks that they're going to need to do. And then there's a book called The 1 Minute Manager, which is a really good book. Go on Amazon, buy it. It's called The 1 Minute Manager, like the new version. I think it's, let me look exactly actually. There's an old version and a new version, and you want the new one. 1 Minute Manager, because it teaches you. It's a short book, but it's very, very good. Okay, so it's called The New 1 Minute Manager by Kenneth Blanchard. And really the key principle in the book is to give on-the-job training and feedback instead of waiting, for like a quarterly or a monthly review, whatever. So that's how a lot of businesses do it, but you want to do it on the spot. So when you hire someone new, the principle of the 1 Minute Manager is that when you see somebody doing something right, you tell them on the spot. So if somebody, let's say they take really good pictures of a car, and they come in and you see the pictures, you're like, hey, these pictures are really good. Great job with the lighting and the angles and stuff like that. This is really perfect. And so when you tell them on the spot, they've just it's like training a dog, really. But I mean, this is how everybody is. Whether you're an employer, employee, this is how humans are. So when they do something right, you immediately give them positive feedback, and then they have it fresh in their memory of what they've just done. So they're more likely to do it right in the future, because they remember what they just did. They did it right, so it's easier. And if you tell them a month later, like, hey, when you took those pictures on that car, those were really good, they're not really going to remember what they did to do it properly. And the same is true with negative things. If they do something, tell them, hey, this is what you could have done better. This is what you can improve, and this is how you do it. And so when you tell them on the spot, they're more likely to have it remembered. So a lot of people, they don't give anybody feedback, and you just kind of go home and you think, man, I wish my salespeople were better. They're not doing it right. But you're not really training them, or you're not really giving them consistent feedback, because one of the hardest things for me to do is to give people positive feedback. It's very difficult. It's very easy for me to see what everybody's doing wrong, but it's even more important to tell people when they're doing it right, because it balances itself out. But also, people want to hear that they're doing something right. It makes them feel great about what they're doing. They want to feel like they're doing a great job. So that's one thing you can do when you hire someone, is to make sure that you are consistently giving them good feedback. And that will not be like an instant fix, but it will gradually improve. If they're not doing something right and you're thinking about firing them, have you considered just sitting down and talking with them and going over? And they might say that, hey, I don't know how to do it right. Like, if you can show me, that'd be great. And then maybe they really want to do a lot better job, but they just don't know how to do a better job. And that happens a lot. But if they're like in a position to where they don't want to do a good job, that's an attitude problem, and you can't fix that. You got to fire them, because there is one key rule in business. You cannot change people. You cannot hire someone and expect them to change who they are. That will not happen. That's why we only hire for good attitude, and then we train the skill. And when people have a good attitude, they can go far. That's not the right way to say it. They can go a long way in your business if they have a good attitude. But if they have a bad attitude, you can't change that. You're not a charity case to where you're taking in people and making them better people. You just cannot do that. You cannot build a business on the principle that you're going to make people better people. Otherwise, you're going to pay a big price for that. So that's today's video. If there's one thing you can take away from this, it's one, hire for good attitude and train the skill. Two, people love positive, consistent feedback. So go get the 1 Minute Manager. The New 1 Minute Manager is the title, by Kenneth Blanchard. Read that book. It's like 60 pages. It's super easy, but it's very, very, very powerful. It will honestly change your life if you apply it in your business. And number 3 is, if you're on the fence about firing someone and the only reason that you're not firing them is because you're scared of not having them to do the stuff that you don't want to do, you got to fire them. Unless, of course, you're just exaggerating. But I mean, if it's a bad attitude and they've been pretty much leeching on if they're not making more for your business than what you're paying them, an employee is usually not a good investment if they're not making more for your business than what you're paying them, because that is the principle for a business, is when you invest money, you need to get more out of it than you put in. Whether it's a vehicle lift, an employee, a tool, a system, whatever. So that's today's video. This is Anthony with Pro Dealer Secrets, and I will see you guys on the next one.